The miracles and other exodus phenomena could also be drawn from old legends in Africa about the sun god. He had a magic rod which could be changed into a snake. You remember that story of the casting of the rod? And could be used to draw water from a rock as well. You remember that story in the Torah. He crossed the Red Sea himself without getting wet. And he divided the waters of the rivers Orontes and Hydaspes by the touch of his rod, and crossed that dry-footed too. Now I want to document that. Bible myth and their parallels in other religions. P.W. Dawn, New York Press, Truth Seeker Company. It goes on to say, there are many examples of older African myths or other writings which allude to the same concepts used in the Exodus story, especially in regard to the parting of waters or other barriers to accept a group's escape and the death of its pursuers. But the Jews' account was not worth the Egyptian scribes even noting. It says here that there's no record. I've been to Egypt 4 times. There's no record of this stuff anywhere except in the hearts and minds of the so-called Jews who exist around the world, who are trying to establish a homeland for themselves, which is a question that we definitely don't want to leave out before we go today. The Jewish homeland between them Jews and them Arabs. And I know you would think that we would take the position of the Arabs. We don't take the position of either one, because both of you are imposters and neither of you have any business in the area. The real land question hasn't even been raised yet. I see the audience is thinning out. See, I don't know who chose this topic, but we came not to be disrespectful, but we came to fight with truth. Because you have lied to black people too long. Right. So I didn't wear any gun or anything. None of the brothers wear any guns. We don't have any weapons. Right. We didn't come to shoot from the hip. We came to shoot from the lip. Come on. Come on. King David was renowned in Hebrew lore for his psalms. You know about the Psalms of David. Come on. I mean, Mother Dear used to, as we say, Mother Dear used to put us to sleep with the Psalms of David. Yes, sir. Let's see how smart David really was. But as fast, here we're dealing with, let me get the resource so you can look these up. I don't want to just talk here. Give me just a second. Oh, here we are. The Jews, Story of a People by Fast. F-A-S-T. Some would say fast, but it's Fast. Fast points out here that King David was renowned in Hebrew lore for his songs. Check out the Diop in African Origin of Civilization. Myth or Reality talks about it also. And we also get glimpses of it in Dr. Yusuf bin Yakanan, who is professor of Pan-African and African Studies at Cornell in New York. Says, but as is pointed out, even Orthodox scholars admit that when analyzed on historical basis, the great majority of the psalms that were supposedly written by David, that these psalms actually come up out of Egyptian and African mythology. Let's examine some of the lines from the hieroglyphics and from the many records that are still in Egypt. You see, it's one thing for the so-called Jew to make claims and then have nothing to prove it. But we can find in the tombs, in the pyramids, in the dead, what do you call it? The Book of the Dead text, the pyramid text. We have the concrete evidence that still exists that white scholars are digging up today. From the walls of the text of Egypt, still there for you to go and examine, where it says in David's so-called psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. You remember that one. Huh? Let's see where he got it from. The Egyptian god Horus was lauded as the leader of the flock and guardian of the fold because he represented the first who rose again from the dead. Uh-oh. We even got a resurrection story here. We even have a virgin birth story in Osiris and who? And his mother Isis. The first virgin birth story. And a resurrection story with Horus. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam got to go back to the black man and black woman.
Right.
That is why we who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad do not follow Arabs. When we say Islam, we mean the nature of the black man and black woman at a time when there were no religious labels. Our nature is what we're dealing with. There were not labels until this new people, white people, came on the planet 6,000 years ago. Then prophets started. Then you had to come up with books because the people that came from the caves and hills of Europe had a concupiscent nature, a reprobate mind, a natural inclination to go against everything that was natural. So you had to have books for them. Bible, Torah, Holy Quran. They had to read all the time. You have to take them through rituals, and they stand up in front of walls, and the Arabs bow down. You have to take them something to put them in check.
Come on.
Because their inclination was to rule everything at any cost. The Jews have never been a philanthropic, good-hearted, good-willed, fair-dealing people with black people. You helped start the slave trade.
That's right.
I'll hold that point. Don't let me forget it. I'll document it with 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 scholars. My goodness.
Come on, brother.
It goes on to say the valley of the shadow of death from the Psalms. Are in death, or valley of the dead, in the ritual where those who suffer a second death are buried forever. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. In ritual, reading from the hieroglyphics, I take my rest in divine domain, at the still waters. In Egyptian mythology, they are the waters of Hetep, the waters of rest and peace. Thou preparest a table from the Egyptian hieroglyphics. A table was prepared upon Mount Hetep and piled with heaps of perishable food. The house of the Lord is designated by speaker in ritual, the mansion where food is produced for me, the mansion lifted up by Shu, the paradise of Am-Hemen. This is all coming from the hieroglyphics. The paths of righteousness. 2 paths led up to the mansion called the double path. He restoreth my soul. From the hieroglyphics it reads, my soul is with me. Now, it goes on to point out that many of the other Psalms of David, the 104th and others, that Akhenaten, when you study the scripts of the Psalms that Akhenaten wrote, who's of the 18th dynasty of Egypt, that you can copy directly from Akhenaten and put the Psalms of David right next to what Akhenaten wrote hundreds of years before David existed, and it's like it was just plagiarized by people who came in and read and studied among our people and started a religion in the midst of our people right in Egypt, right in Africa. Right. There are many others. Solomon's Proverbs. It goes on here to compare Solomon's Proverbs with ancient African and Egyptian writings and gives you examples, a whole page of them, of what Solomon said in his Proverbs and what you can find concrete proof of still there in the text of the pyramids and the text of the Book of the Dead and others throughout the Valley of the Kings. I have 10 minutes. But I'm going to have to stop this for a second and go into something else. Why do the Jews always pretend to back black organizations? Why? Because the Jews have used black people as cannon fodder. Have pushed us out front on the front line to fight for things that they wanted in America. So they backed Negro organizations, not black organizations. They backed Negro